Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, as the EU and African Union summit in Abidjan comes to an end, calls come from across both blocs to do more to repatriate migrants being held in inhumane conditions in detention camps in Libya. Also, in the first official visit to Ghana by a French president, Emmanuel Macron heads to Accra to meet with President Nana Akufo-Addo. Both men agree that in boosting Franco-Ghanaian economic cooperation, Africa should take the lead. And in the wake of the exit of Zimbabwe's Robert Mugabe, we hear from opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai, who says that despite the criticism of the former president's human rights record, he thinks the 93-year-old's alleged misdeeds should be left in the past. But first, at the close of the EU and African Union summit in Abidjan, leaders from across both blocs agreed to ramp up efforts to repatriate migrants being held in squalid detention camps in Libya. More than 423,000 are currently stranded in the country, having made their way there in the hopes of making it to Europe. Many are from Africa, and the discovery of a rampant slave trade saw the question of how to reduce illegal migration from the continent become a central theme to the two-day summit. Luke Schrago tells us more.
The African and European unions should have had 2 days to discuss continental development and Africa's growing young population. However, the fate of black migrants sold into slavery by smugglers in Libya put human rights at the top of the agenda.
We consider this smuggling a crime against humanity. And also, the various countries must put in place special forces to fight against smugglers of human beings.
Conditions in which the migrants were detained also stoked concern. Of 42 camps in Libya, the head of the African Union Commission brought up one its teams had seen firsthand.
There is a camp in Tripoli where there are 3,800 African migrants, mostly from countries in West Africa, including women and children who are in an inhumane situation. All want, as soon as possible, to be taken out of this wasp's nest.
Morocco offered aircraft to take that group back to their nations of origin, with Libyan authorities promising to do more to investigate reports of slave auctions. Along with the AU and United Nations, the EU pledged the creation of a joint task force to crack down on trafficking networks and sanction smugglers, though Europe was also taking a long-term look at economic stability.
As we have done in Europe by setting up the Fund for Strategic Investment, we've developed a plan for external investment in Africa, which should be able to inject 44 billion euros by 2020.
Security in sub-Saharan Africa is the next major theme, something that'll come up at another meeting in Paris in 2 weeks.
In the first official visit to Ghana by a French president, Emmanuel Macron was in Accra on Thursday, where he met with President Nana Akufo-Addo. It's part of Macron's efforts to strengthen ties with Anglophone Africa and to recharacterize France's relationship with countries across the continent. Akufo-Addo said that he is happy to boost Franco-Ghanaian economic links, but insisted that this would have to be a partnership of equals and that Ghana and Africa must set and tackle their own priorities.
It is not right for a country like Ghana, 60 years after independence, to still have its health and education budgets being financed on the basis of the generosity and charity of European taxpayers. We have to get away from this mindset of dependence, this mindset about what can France do for us. France will do whatever it needs to do for its own sake. And when those coincide with ours, tant mieux, as the French people say. But our main responsibility as leaders, as citizens, is what we need to do to grow our own countries.
Well, our Mark Perelman was in Accra as Macron made his final stop on his tour of West Africa. Mark tells us more.
Very strong words from the president of Ghana, words that were clearly appreciated by the French president, Emmanuel Macron, who then immediately said, well, this is exactly what we should hear from African leaders taking matters into their own hands. There was a good chemistry between both presidents. Emmanuel Macron was the first president to set a foot on Ghanian soil since the independence 60 years ago. And this was a message in favor of democracy, of new leadership, of better governance, but it was also a message saying the French policy in Africa is not only about French-speaking countries anymore. There are business opportunities elsewhere, for example, in Ghana. And yesterday at the African Union, European Union summit, he also met with the president of Angola, João Lourenço, Portuguese-speaking countries. This is a way for Emmanuel Macron to send the message that he is speaking to the youth, and he's not only speaking to the traditional allies of France. This is what he tried to achieve today. Let's see whether he will be able to deliver on those promises in the future.
Mark Perwin there for us in Accra. Well, in other news, despite a ban, Congolese opposition protesters gathered across the country on Thursday to once again call for President Joseph Kabila to step down. Police fired tear gas at demonstrators in Kinshasa and Kananga. In Goma in the north, police clashed with crowds insisting that Kabila leave before long-delayed elections are held. In power since 2001, his refusal to step down after the end of his second mandate last December has prompted unrest and resentment. 2 police officers were killed by suspected separatists in an English-speaking region of Cameroon on Thursday. The death takes the number of security officials who've died in attacks this month to 10. The raid happened in Otu, the same region where 4 soldiers from the Army's Motorized Infantry Battalion were killed early on Wednesday. Angola is opening its borders to Mozambicans and South Africans. From Friday, nationals from those 3 countries can travel freely between themselves without needing a visa. The arrangement was struck earlier this year and applies to trips under 30 days. The difficulty faced by Africans traveling from one country to the other has long been a source of frustration across the continent. Well, following the resignation of President Robert Mugabe, the country's new leader is still yet to form a cabinet. There's speculation that President Emerson Mnangagwa may be negotiating the inclusion of members of the opposition Movement for Democratic Change. Now, that's led by Morgan Tsvangirai, who joined an uneasy coalition with Robert Mugabe from 2008 to 2013. Now, Tsvangirai said that despite the criticism of Mugabe's human rights record, he doesn't think that Mugabe should face legal action. But that the same doesn't go for the leader's wife, Grace, long suspected as having planned on succeeding her husband.
I think it would be wrong to pursue a 93-year-old man. I don't know about Grace, but for Mugabe, I think it would be wrong, just because of his advanced age. Also, that Mugabe invokes 2 emotions: a hero of the liberation struggle and a villain towards the end of his administration. So with that conflictual position, it will be very difficult to pursue such a man. If at all, I think the Grace's evaluation will be very, very negative. Nowhere compared to Mugabe. For Grace, I don't know. I think that if there are any criminal offenses committed, I wouldn't say that they should not proceed to prosecute her, because she's young enough to answer for her omissions or commissions.
And finally, Nigerian superstar Wizkid has won Best International Artist in the Mobos in London. He edged out other music giants like Jay-Z and Kendrick Lamar to clinch his big victory. The Mobos, which stands for Music of Black Origin, started in the UK in 1996. Fans in Wizkid's homeland are ecstatic that he's representing on the global stage. One of his biggest songs is a collaboration with the Canadian star Drake, and we'll leave you with their sounds. Thanks very much for watching Eye on Africa. Join us again when you can. Take care.
Steady representing for me city, yo. African boy, me rep my thing, yo. Me come clean like me coming on me video. Me come through like a soldier.